So during the very brief hiatus that I took after the Oilers being eliminated from the playoffs, a remarkable thing happened, and that is that Sean Strickland is the UFC middleweight champion of the world once again. A few weeks ago, I talked about Sean Strickland, and I kind of talked about his lead up to one of his other fights, and I basically said that, something has ended for Sean Strickland there. I never said that it was going to be his career. I just said that it was his ability to play this cool heel character. The guy that says whatever he wants, does whatever he wants, doesn't care how the fans react to it. If anything, maybe even enjoys it a little bit when people are pissed off at him. That's what a cool heel is. Sean Strickland cannot be that anymore, so ever since he basically turned around and he demanded the crowd's adulation in Houston. There was at least one viewer who got very, very upset about that. And he was a pest for like days and days. And he would pop in like about around the same time. Actually, it was maybe a couple of weeks. And he would pop around like the same time every few days. And he would be like, oh, well, Sean Strickland, he's going to go on to fight for a championship. Never said that he wouldn't. I just said that one particular piece of his persona is now off of the table. And now that we've seen him win the middleweight championship of the world again, there's actually another piece of his persona that I think has to come off of the table now. We used to think that Sean Strickland was a guy who basically, he told you what was on his mind. He gave you the God's honest truth of his opinion on a particular fighter, his opinion on a particular event in the world, his opinion on a particular topic. And so going into this fight with Khamzat Chimaev, he had a lot to say about Khamzat. And he basically did everything that he could to make it sound like he and Khamzat hated each other. But even sitting there watching that fight, people all around me were just sitting there saying, it's like, he's just putting on a show. Him and Khamzat are friends. They spar together. And indeed, they've sparred together in the past. They've trained together in the past. Now, the idea that two fighters hate each other, or at the very least are mad at each other, is typically something that contributes a lot to at least the perception that a fight is expected to be pretty good. And as it pertains to at least that expectation in particular, this Khamzat and Strickland fight, it did deliver. Like, this was a very good fight. Much better than what anybody had any right to expect a fight with Khamzat Chimaev and Sean Strickland to be. Because, Khamzat Chimaev, when he first busted into the UFC, very exciting fighting. He just went in, finished guys quick, lots of knockouts. His fights for the last couple of years, he just goes in and he just takes a guy down and he exercises his superior grappling and he just holds that guy down. For 3 rounds, 5 rounds, however many. He's been winning his fights up until now, but not very exciting fights. And then meanwhile, Sean Strickland, he's got the most bizarre boxing technique that I think that I've ever seen, to be honest with you. I think that based on that boxing technique, Sean Strickland should not be successful as a professional fighter. I call his boxing stance like the autistic child. No, not just like the autistic child, but the frightened autistic child, being bullied on the playground, and he kind of walks around. He's got his hands up like this, and he kind of wobbles with his hands every now and then. And when a guy reaches and they're trying to grapple, he'll go like he's slapping at the guy's hands, and he's got a very good jab. Let's make no mistake. Any number of actual professional boxers in the world would be overjoyed to have Sean Strickland's jab. But what he doesn't do is throw a lot of combinations. He just kind of wanders around, just jab, 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 back up, jab, back up, jab. So while I think that there has been a lot to enjoy in Sean Strickland's persona, he's an exciting fighter. Realistically, no, I'm sorry, he is not. He just isn't. So I suppose to sell this fight, these guys both kind of decided that they needed to push this idea that they hate each other, or at the very least that they're mad at each other. So you got the lead up that we got, and then the fight did deliver on it. But here's the thing. Let's go back to what I was saying before about Sean Strickland. Who did we think Sean Strickland is? We thought that he's somebody who speaks his mind honestly, tells you what he really thinks about the guy that he's fighting, tells you what he really thinks about the fight, tells you what he really thinks about whatever else is going on. But now he's the guy who also just turned around and he put together this, this polished kind of marketing fakery on this last fight that he had. So is he, the honest everyman speaking his mind for the average Joe? Is he that guy anymore? And I would have to suggest that that part of his persona is also compromised. Now, he has kind of reached a point right now, a specific point in time where arguably he can afford to do those sorts of things because he is the UFC middleweight champion of the world. And when you're the champion, you can afford to compromise on your persona. You can afford to compromise on your personality just a little bit. You got a nice big gold belt on your shoulder now, to kind of help distract people from that. But the last time that Strickland was the champion, how many successful defenses did he have? As a matter of fact, the UFC just they turned him into like this transitional champion, or at least they thought that they were turning him into a transitional champion. They used his championship reign basically as an opportunity to put the belt on Dricus du Plessis so that they could have that grudge match with him and Israel Adesanya fought with very high stakes. And then the next fight after that, then he lost to Khamzat Chimaev in exactly the manner that I described earlier. Khamzat just went in, took him down, smothered him for 5 rounds. It was a very boring fight. But the point is, so far, admittedly, that's, up until then, that was like 1 of 1 in terms of championship reigns. He's on his 2nd championship reign now. Maybe it will go differently. Do we have any reason to expect that it's going to go any differently? Maybe after his next fight, he's going to find himself without that championship and now with a compromised persona. And from that particular point, where does Sean Strickland go from there? I wonder if he thought that through. As much as I like the guy, and keep in mind that I do like this guy, and unfortunately, I think it is a little bit unfortunate that some of his most ardent supporters never seem to come around when you're saying good things about him, but they show up and make themselves an absolute pain in the ass if you say anything about him that even seems negative. But, I like him. I would like to see him do well. I'd like to see him continue to succeed. But is he going to find himself in a situation in the near future where he's painted himself into a little bit of a corner, and now he doesn't have the championship or that maverick persona to carry himself forward through the next stage of his career? Well, I guess we'll see when we find out who his first title defense is going to be.